On behalf of the captain and the crew, we'd like to welcome you on board Flight 071, Silver Wings, flying with seniors.
Cabin crew, arm doors, and cross-check.
Thank you for listening to us today. If this is the first time listening to this podcast, welcome aboard. If you're a returning listener, we're glad you're back. Seat 1A provides tips and tricks from more than 5 million miles worth of flying to help you take off from the crowd.
In today's experience, recorded on the 2nd of March 2023, we're going to talk about flying with senior citizens.
And then we'll wrap up with a discussion about current events in the world of aviation.
So this is something different.
True, but I mean, as certain or more people retire and older populations age, you've got older populations on flights and the challenges that go with it. And myself, I'm booking flights this June. I'm doing a trip up to Yukon and Alaska with my parents and other family members, and having to remember in my head, okay, I'm booking with my elderly parents, and I need to have certain things in mind that I may not have to worry about when I'm flying by myself.
Totally, and we will be these people one day.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Flying is so different now than, the technology alone. And airport systems are improving, but for those that know technology and are comfortable with it, that's all great. But there's obviously a generational gap here. And, as the air travel industry obviously is coming back strong and picks up and load volumes are increasing and airports are getting bigger, and aircraft turn times are getting shorter and efficiencies keep getting in place, I think this demographic kind of gets a bit lost in the shuffle, literally.
And, seat pitches and everything else get tighter and smaller.
Yeah. It can be a bit of a cruel world.
Yes.
They don't, and unfortunately, because it depends how much care and assistance is needed. So, and for perspective, the demographic we're talking about are people that have grown up through the golden age of flying. They've seen how aviation has changed and what options there were, and back in the day when sort of thing comes through.
Well, and I know it's like, early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, when flights deregulated and all of a sudden became much cheaper and people were able to do a lot more flying than they did before. So, some people, just given price and other things, may not have done long distance flights until later in their life for the first time, as opposed to our generation that, you do it when you're 8, 9, 10 or younger, or, somewhere in your teens kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I would see this a lot as crew. You have people like you just mentioned that have been used to proper service on a plane where every no matter what flight you go, you get a full meal, open bar, international, domestic, doesn't matter.
Porcelain
lots of
dishes.
time. Yeah. And there I am, throwing like bloody pretzels and drinks in plastic cups, and you can see that they're just disappointed or nonplussed about it. And it's just, times have changed. It's now all about money and efficiency and economics.
You wanted the cheap ticket to go visit your grandchildren.
Exactly. So I think there's different categories. Like obviously and it's great, there's those that embrace technology and have some realm of knowledge on the whole system and everything. But then you have those that are completely detached from it. And you just mentioned go visit the children kind of thing. You see that a lot where elderly parents are put on flights to go around the world to make it to some other locale, and they haven't flown in, either ever or in a very, very, very long time.
And you must have seen this when you were station manager in Calgary.
Oh, man. So, when I was with British Airways, we saw this a lot. the beauty of BA being such a global airline is they go into different parts, pretty much every continent. So we would have people getting on our flight where Heathrow was not the final destination. It was just a connection. But they're not just simply connecting for a quick 1 hour hop over to wherever, like Madrid or something. It was going onwards to Delhi, Mumbai,
Lagos.
Mombasa, Lagos, all these places. It was incredible. And that's why the beauty of the air travel industry is the ability to do that. But you would see then, these elderly people going or coming on these planes. And it was crazy. You look at the itinerary and say, okay, like do the 8 hour run to Heathrow, have like a 9 hour connection, and then do another 12 or 14 to one of these places that we've just mentioned. I mean, as a fit middle-aged adult, that is intimidating in itself on our own. And, we're obviously young and able. We can like buzz around an airport, take off into the city, have some fun, whatever, or pay for a lounge, do whatever we want. Those options are not necessarily applicable to senior citizens or, sorry.
It's not as simple and easy as for...
Yeah, to make that happen. And that's simply because the system just isn't there to embrace it for every single individual to do that.
Just because in my head, I'm like, okay, like most of, say, BA, for example, in Heathrow flies from the same terminal, but there are the occasional city that you have to change. And I'm just like, Heathrow, like changing terminals is daunting pretty much for anybody at the best of times. I can't imagine, like, it's like, well, I've never flown before. I'm in this foreign airport. I mean,
everyone
English
rushing
maybe
past
like
you.
second language, or trying to figure out things, and it's like, well, and I need to get to X gate to get to this next city that's going on.
Yeah, and that's a huge one, is the language. Do they understand the language completely of these transit airports? So, I mean, granted, there's people that they totally are able to get through it and it's all fine. It's not even an issue. Mm-hmm. We're kind of looking at the ones that are less experienced with that.
And to be fair, I mean, that's not just an age thing. There's plenty of people who are much younger who are lost in an experience as well. So
exactly. And so one of the common things that people would do, and they would send, we'll just kind of go with that theme of sending the parents on the plane, is they would book assistance. Now, most people think that assistance in air travel is simply mobility assistance, which means wheelchair. Automatically book a wheelchair, because that means you'll be thrown in a chair, pushed around somewhere in transit, and guaranteed to be delivered onto your next flight, because that is the responsibility of the airline. And yes, that is true. If you are, have a mobility need and require a wheelchair in itself to assist you, then fine. But they would also then just abuse it, unfortunately. And we would get planes every day and miracles would happen. So the flight would call in and say, yeah, okay. And we'd see on the manifest, it's like, oh my God, it's like 27 wheelchair are on arrival. Okay. And then the, captain would call it in and just to confirm it. So we would run around the airport borrowing, stealing wheelchairs. I mean, if you're an outstation, you maybe only have 3 wheelchairs physically assigned to you.
Yeah. Beg, borrow, and steal from all the other airlines that are around you, right?
Yeah. Now, some airlines, there's a wheelchairs being provided by a third-party company, a service. But they're also strapped, and they're servicing every single other aircraft in a terminal or whatnot. Anyway, we would do our best to have as many wheelchairs lined up on the gate. And as people would come off, 2 things would happen. They would know that they're there for a wheelchair, and they would have it on their boarding card, or they would just simply see the wheelchair and be like, wheelchair. Because they would see it ready to go.
Yeah.
So we'd have to have a manifest. We'd have to get their name and ensure that they had in fact booked it. Fine. Then we'd have to line everybody up at the top of the jet bridge. There would only be so many people available to run them, because once you assign an agent or a third party assigns an employee to handle the person, they have to see them right through to their meet and greet or to their next gate. So you're tying that person up. That means walking them all the way through to the customs hall, potential baggage, claim, etc., clearing the immigration component if there is one, and then delivering them out to public side or connection. But all so it got very tricky logistically with your staff. So we would have to park people, and we'd have a shuttle system. It would be at least a 20-minute wait for someone to come back, right? So we'd have to have an agent also hung just to be there with. You can't just leave people in a quiet hallway. The crew would be long gone, long gone. Plane is already starting its turn, like people are servicing the plane. And inevitably, that 27 wheelchair would end up at like 6 real ones.
And you weren't even flying to a pilgrimage location.
Exactly. They would just say, forget it. They just got up, stand up, and walk, which,
it's a miracle.
Exactly. And we come back and like, where'd everybody go? Oh, they just walked. Oh, great. And then they just vanish into the ether. So did they actually need the chair? Maybe, maybe not. But, clearly, factually, there were some that were using the service of the wheelchair to move people around.
To jump the queue?
Essentially, just to get the service.
Yeah.
But what people also don't realize is another...
And then was it also safe for like boarding purposes as well? To be like, all right, those who need physical assistance or wheelchairs, whatever, you can get on first. And they're like, well, I can do that and have my seat and have my luggage spot overhead and everything else.
And there's validity on that one. So we'll get to that one in a minute. There's one more service or code that can be assigned that people don't really know about. So wheelchairs, WCHR. Some airlines even charge for that, surprisingly. But there's another one called Meet and Assist, MAAS. And that is kind of more the golf cart realm. And that's simply just to have an agent meet and provide whatever assistance. That's generally like directional guidance, or, you don't need a wheelchair, but this is a massive airport. We have the golf cart. We can run you to the next gate. Perfect. Right? Or run you to customs, and then they're good from there. And that is a lot more applicable in some of these cases than simply full-on wheelchair. And what they would do then is they would then get them to that next gate. And now you mentioned boarding. So on the flip side, we would actually embrace that because we didn't want, I hate to say it, we didn't want to like clog up the aisle. Because you think about it, someone coming on a plane, bags, aircraft these days, especially the wide bodies, you've seen the bins on a 777. Like they are literally in the sky, the pun. To get any sort of bag up there, well, not that they have to close it, to find the seat. Those that haven't traveled, they go into the 343 config, and it's just letters and numbers and trying to figure out the seat. So, we would work with the crew and be like, as soon as you're ready to start taking on any wheelchair assistance, meet and assist, let us know and we'll start bringing them down, work them through, get them to their seats, and then, we start the boarding process for everybody else, which was important. So we would use that to help with efficiency for sure.
Yeah.
There was, so my late father, we traveled until he was well into his years, and he was fine. He didn't need he was a wheelchair or anything like that. And he was, we moved through airports just fine. But in his final years, he had like a folding, like a walking stick just for stability. And he was still able to kind of keep pace. I remember we were in Auckland boarding, where were we? I think it was Auckland to Honolulu or Auckland, LA, or one of these things. And they did a pre-board for anybody that needed assistance. So I'm with him walking up, and they see us coming. I guess the agent didn't see the walking stick. And my father at the time, he had full the gray hair and the white goatee. Like, he clearly looked like a senior citizen.
Yes.
In that sense, in that stereotypical sense. And right away, before we even approached the gate, the agent's kind of not yelling, but was like, "Nope, this is only for pre-boarding." Basically, maybe there were others also trying to approach. And then as soon as the agent said that, he saw the stick, and then you could see him like literally swallow his tongue. It's like, oh, so sorry, you have a yes, yes, and I'm kind of giving him like the eagle side eye, like, really, dude,
Yeah.
chill out. Yeah, and then we went on and did our thing. So yeah, I mean, where else? Like, it's a lot for people to take on, a day of travel or multiple days of travel.
Mm-hmm. And myself, I know from experiences that I've had, is when things are changed, and you talk about technology, and I mean this is not just for seniors, but pretty much for anybody, where people get a travel delay and they don't realize that the airline is going to change their ticket, so they go online and think that they have to do all sorts of things to alter it. So they do a search for X airline or whatever, and most browsers ads will end up at the top, and they'll think that it's actually the airline doing the ticket. They book it, and then they realize, wait, I didn't need to book a new one. But because they've booked probably a non-refundable ticket, there's not a lot either a credit card or anybody else can do, because it's like you've booked a second ticket, and it's a non-refundable ticket. So it's a case of, okay, when things go sideways, and especially in the last 12 to 18 months or so, when things have gone really weird post-COVID, what happens for, like, if you're not flying with a parent or an elderly person or something, and if things go sideways, how do they know what to do? Or do you have to give a sort of a game plan to say, like, if this goes wrong, here's what has to happen?
Totally. And you wander through any airport, any major international hub right now, and you will see these horrible cases of elderly senior people that are just lost in the shuffle. The flight's been canceled, and they're just sitting there, and they don't even know why or what. They just know they're not on the plane.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously maybe some staff is taking them off the plane and wheel them somewhere and park them, but what now?
Yeah.
Who
I think back
advocates
to
for them?
the experience that we had interviewing Stephanie and her mother. It's like, well, if her mother had been flying alone and had the whole luggage issue on her own, I think the outcome might have been quite different.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there's nobody advocating in the system for this group that we're talking about. Right. It's different when you have like an unaccompanied minor. It's not an adult. We're
Yeah.
talking child care and such attention.
Yeah.
But when we're looking
But
at
there's
this,
nobody walking around with like unaccompanied elderly or something, right?
yeah, this is true. Oh man, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many cases now where flights just, connections, things just go off the rails, and where do these people end up? I don't know. I mean, they obviously get to where they go, but what I really would love to know, like, what happens in these cases where the plane goes cancel and mechanical, and we're at the end of the day, and we're talking like hotel and food.
Yeah.
How does this person get to that hotel room? When we're
Yeah.
talking about like these wild places where you have like terminals and shuttles and weather and
Yeah.
Man, I
And
don't know. I mean,
and if like it's a wheelchair passenger unaccompanied.
exactly. I've seen it where the person who has sent them on the flight has literally put like a tag around their neck, like an instruction
Okay.
printed. It's like, if there's any issues with the flight, please call number.
X. Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe only speaks language, and it sucks. You're having to label this person like a
Yeah.
cage animal, which that's not the way it should be. But sadly,
But
because
then the thing
again,
is, it's like, well, actually, we're stuck in the transit. We'll call, but you can't do a thing.
exactly, yeah, exactly. So it can get pretty miserable for some people to do that. My late aunt, my late father's sister, came out of Singapore to visit us in the Northwest Territories, which is where I grew up for a lot of my youth. At that time, Canadian Airlines, which Canadian North, Canadian Regional, etc., had Boeing 737-200 series service. And those are the aircraft where the staircase would extend out from the fuselage. It's built into the plane. Fine. Now, my aunt was a larger lady, and she had mobility issues, so she was a true wheelchair case. So it was all booked that way. So it would have been like a flight, probably something like Singapore to Vancouver to Edmonton, and then on this flight up. And I think now she has traveled the world and had traveled the world, and it was pretty good. So she was able to manage herself, but obviously needed the wheelchair and the assistance to move along. Fine. I just remember being a little boy, and she came up to visit. Middle of winter, snow was blowing. It's a classic winter day, and all the other passengers get off, and they had to use the carry-off wheelchair to get her down onto the tarmac. If any of you have seen a carry-off wheelchair,
it's a tiny, narrow.
It has to go down the aisle. So fine. I just remember that all these, like the baggage handlers and whatever person of strength, generally in this case where we were, it was all a bunch of tough guys, had to go. And I just see her pop out of the door, and this set of steps that we're talking about that comes out of the plane, I mean, obviously it's solid, but it's pretty small and basic. It's like all made of aluminum. It's not like wide step air stairs.
Like an aluminum ladder or something, or
basically it's a glorified ladder. That's a great way to put it. And they are trying to bring her down on the carry-off wheelchair. I mean, she was 200 pounds easy, if not more. Yeah. It's icy, it's snowing, it's slippery. And me and my dad are, on the other side of the glass in the terminal, just watching this all happen like, oh no, this is not good. And there she comes out, carry her one step at a time. 1, 2, go. And eventually onto the ground, transfer to the regular wheelchair. And it's like time stood still for like however many minutes that was to get her out. I'm like, now those guys deserve a tip for proper wheelchair carry. Yeah, it was incredible. And we'd have this, BA, Martinair, all these ones where you'd have like people that couldn't walk, and you'd have to use that aisle chair and do the transfer on the jet bridge to the regular wheelchairs. It was incredible, the amount of service that goes on behind the scenes. People don't realize.
And in previous experiences, you talked about, say, like senior medical flights.
Yeah, right? I mean, when you get into this age bracket, medical and health are huge issues. We talk about medical, and a lot of elderly with their health problems can activate in the air. But you also have people that, how do we say, their life is not designed for air travel.
Fair enough. Okay.
We landed in Prince Edward Island, PEI, the Maritimes of Canada. Yeah, Charlottetown. Beautiful summer day, layover, and it was a crew change on that one. So what happened now? Let me think about this. Mid-flight, something happened to a lav, and we didn't quite know what, but it was enough that we had to lock it off. Or I think I was in the front of the aircraft, and I heard one of my crew in the back saying, this lav is out of service. I'm like, okay. And she didn't really tell us much detail, except something that an elderly gentleman had just used it, and it needed to be clean. So we had to radio in saying extra cleaning service required, because it was going to be a tight turn. When that message gets relayed up, I just think, oh no, someone urinated on the floor, just need some mopping and sanitizing. What we didn't realize is a gentleman somehow had full-on explosive diarrhea in the rear lav, and the walls were covered.
Well,
yeah.
Like Kenny in South Park.
Yeah. And he had tracked it to his seat.
Oh, no.
Yeah. How this is mid-flight. Did nobody smell anything. I don't know what happened. I wasn't working that section of the aircraft. Maybe the crew was, you know, didn't want to say anything, which poor guy, was
Yeah.
embarrassing and, couldn't control, but clearly he had an issue. I just remember they sent like some person to clean the plane. They just showed up with like a cloth and a spray bottle.
Oh boy. You're gonna need a bigger cloth.
Yeah. And Charlottetown's not a huge airport. So I think it was the same guy that he had some other job. It was like not a baggage handler, but he was a multifunction guy. He wasn't a full-on aircraft cleaning personnel.
Yeah.
So they probably just sent him saying, "Oh, just go wipe down the washroom. Just needs a wipe down." And he shows up. They open the door, and you could just see his face, like, "Oh no!"
Yeah.
Right. At that point, we all realized, "Oh, okay, building some ground time here, delay. But this needs some proper like hazmat kind of." And then they had to like, oh, okay, get the gloves, get someone to get the full gear, and then we had to go find the seat, which then knocks the seat out of service if there's no extra cushion on board.
Yeah.
Replace.
And there wasn't.
Well, then you have to get maintenance to bring one.
Yeah.
Because they have to make sure it's not expired and everything and all that kind of stuff. The crew that we were handing off to, we had to kind of leave midway. Like, so this is what happened. Okay, bye. See you later. Good luck. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So on and on it goes. I mean, but there's also some really magical moments that happened as well. I mean, we are blathering on about, all the negative points, but sometimes you just have some amazing conversations with these people. And that's one thing I would have loved on, connecting with random passengers and hearing about that golden age of flying and the way things were, or them telling us about how they flew on some aircraft or some route or some airport that used to be a shack is now a major terminal. Those are amazing stories to hear.
Or flying like, Connie's or DH or Dakotas or...
Well, funny you mentioned Connie. So one flight I was doing, I don't know the route. I honestly don't know the route, but it was like a 3 hour. Maybe it was a Toronto transcontinental. Anyway, this very well dressed, put together, elderly female lady. She's probably in her 70s, easily for sure. She's very nice and doing the service. And after I pick you up, she's like, "I used to do your job." I'm like, "Excuse me?" She's like, "I used to be a flight attendant." I'm like, "Oh, how very nice." And she pulled out she had like a little, I don't know, what do you call these things? Thing to hold a photo in, a mini album for a single photo, like a little leather thing out of her purse, and shows me a picture of her as a Trans-Canada Airlines flight attendant, a black and white.
Wow.
All done up in the uniform and, and everything. I'm like, what? She's like, "This was me." So she actually took pride in showing crew that she used to be back. And she's like, "I used to fly the Connie." And she rattled off a bunch of other
Electras.
stuff. Yeah. She mentioned Electra. And right away, it was like instant, like, respect. It's like, wow, the grandmother of flying is on the plane.
I've got a living time capsule in front of me here.
Yeah. And, you have some chat with her and just hearing about this and that. Absolutely incredible. That kind of stuff. People
awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there was one, we're talking here with negatives and positives. There was one other sector that we forgot to mention. And we've mentioned it before, but sadly, people pass away on planes.
Yep.
It's not uncommon. I mean, it happens a lot. And you get this.
I think previously you mentioned it was like notably from San Francisco.
It was the Manila San Francisco run, the Philippine Airlines. And, there's a huge Filipino population in San Francisco. And that flight would shuttle people going back and forth between their children, grandchildren, hometown, etc. And, they would fly alone. And, I heard this firsthand from a former Philippine Airlines flight attendant that, on those long flights, there would always be a death commonly.
Every single flight?
Not every single, but
but pretty regularly.
At least every week, kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just these poor people are being sent to fly back and forth. Yeah, sad to hear, but
Yeah,
that's just the demographic of what goes across and back. I worked for Martinair, which is no longer around, but they used to do the Amsterdam, Edmonton, Calgary run, and we'd have a load of same thing, elderly coming to visit because in Alberta, Canada, there's a heavy Dutch population, right? Farmers and whatever, wherever they've all ended up, and so they'd be coming to visit and go back and forth, visit the parents, the kind of thing, or the parents come to visit. So yeah, it's an interesting world. I mean, biggest thing is you have to have patience for these people. I see it so much whenever I fly, people being impatient of people, whether it's their physical speed or their mental capacity to process what's happening or understanding instruction. I was just in LA again last week on a trip. That same Terminal 6 and overlapping announcements. You cannot hear a thing. Oh, it just drives me batty. And thinking about, someone that has hearing impairment or trying to understand, zone boarding and frequent flyer and this, where can you hear those that need extra time to get down to the aircraft? Please board now. You don't hear it. You have like 200 people standing in front of you.
And that's just the terminal noise, let alone everybody else who's talking around your flight and all the other sundry of sounds happening with stores and restaurants and everything else. So an absolute cacophony of information.
Yeah. I mean, other airports and airlines handle it well. Like you go to like Amsterdam or Singapore, they have a way to process this. And, maybe that's because they have a third party provider that's there, attentive and ready to like get these people onto the aircraft. But each country, each city is different, right?
And I know it was like, particularly when countries needed like app usage for, say, like in Canada for the ArriveCAN app, for example, to indicate your standard, that there were like people who weren't technologically, well, proficient might be the wrong word, but they weren't as quick as they could be. And it's like, okay, you're standing there and they're trying to get through things and work through things, and you've got a line of people behind you and people all getting impatient and angry and people getting flustered and angry, and then just saying, all right, to heck with it, and just like leaving the airport because they're embarrassed that there's like, well, I can't go on this flight now because everybody thinks I'm just an absolute stupid idiot.
Exactly. And it has nothing to do with them. It's the system.
Yeah.
Is not built and designed to accommodate for that. And it's funny you mentioned like the apps and machines. You come into a lot of airports, they have these self-serve immigration kiosks where it has to scan your passport and then take a picture of your face. You have to stand and align your face in some sort of box screen thing. And again, it's basically an app on a big screen. Lot to embrace. And I see people struggling with it all the time. And it's not like they can just walk away from it because they're just going to get sent right back to it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, fortunately here in Vancouver, the airport has invested in guest experience staff to assist people. And they're just completely roaming around the kiosks, seeing does anybody need help, but I know there's definitely airports that don't have that kind of staff and assistance. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a call of the wild almost in some airports.
Yeah. So, where are we going with any tips on this? Is kind of just be respectful, be tolerant, and, be aware of what's around it. But also at the same time, understand what kind of assistance is the airline or the airport giving? Does the person even need it? Are they taking advantage of it or not? What's going on? It's good to know the back end systems, like the whole wheelchair thing, the meet and assist stuff. Who's it for? I'll see the golf carts.
If you're booking tickets, I mean, particularly for elderly, and remember in our experience when we talked to Paul Papadimitriou about layovers in Frankfurt, and him saying that he's like 6'6" 4 or 5 or 2 meters tall, and he's like, I'm having a heck of a time trying to make this connection running through the terminal. Like, can't even imagine a little grandmother trying to make the connection, through say Frankfurt or Heathrow or something like that. So be wary of, okay, the price is great, but maybe the connection is terrible. That it's like, build an extra buffer time when you're booking tickets.
Yeah. And this is where, being up the know, being an app geek and knowing, okay, is the connection, is the flight going to use the tarmac and offload and have to do the bus and vice versa or not? And that's all logistical hitch points that can completely throw a loop into, someone that needs a bit of extra assistance to navigate through the whole thing. Yeah. I mean, if you sometimes you see a golf cart and you see like just regular people on it being whisked around. Now, that being said, that might be the cart to do fast connections, right? But it's interesting when you're kind of going through airports, seeing what's going on, who's using what.
Yeah.
Priority lines. Oh, that's actually one. Security lineups, and we've talked about security before, are just mind-numbingly painful. Watching people being slow, and same thing again. You get people that need more time, to take off their shoes, to put everything in the bag, to do the whole tray thing when everything around them is going on. There's a lineup of hundreds of people behind them, and so where I'm going with this is, well, that happens, yes, and that's not necessarily anything you can do. But when you're trying to pick that security line, be wise. Be very, very wise. Sometimes that fast pass is blended with the extra assistance line. Families and children. In some cases, in the Canadian airports, the Nexus line, which is our fast track line,
Global Traveler,
blends with the line that's for families and mobility. It's like, I'm faster off just standing in a moving line than being stuck, behind people that need that extra time. So there's a pro tip, is to choose your security line carefully,
and check your line, like who's in front of you there.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it going to look like it might take a while?
Yeah. And when you're boarding the plane, same thing, as they're calling zones, as they're calling assistance, are you going to get on in your correct zone? Can you be able to get ahead of them or not? Or maybe you can help them. Who knows? It's different ways.
Exactly. If you're liking this episode experience, you may also enjoy Experience 42. Is there a doctor on board? Medical emergencies in flight. It's available wherever you listen to your podcasts.
So another topic that we need to bring up is, with a lot of domestic flying, especially in North America, everything is buy on board. Gone are the days of like nice, luxurious, free, proper meals. And what does buy on board look like? Is the cart comes down the aisle, you indicate, hopefully it's there. Oh, wait a minute, you need to have looked in the menu, either on the screen, on your app, or perhaps there's like a hard copy in your seat pocket. You indicate, and then you got to whip out your credit card and pay immediately. And that's the end of it. That's the only way you're going to buy on board. Some airlines take cash. Well, I know a lot of, elderly that travel have challenges with that. Do they have the credit card on them? Do they even know where the menu is? Has it even been shown to them or pointed out? What does that all look like? I see it all the time. People are just expecting free pretzels. But, I just flew on Air Canada to LA and back. There's no free anything. Just simply the beverage, and that's it. They've done away with the pretzel and the peanut kind of stuff. Now, not every airline's like that. You get something, but if they're expecting a full-on meal, actually, we would see it on, my famous WestJet runs to Hawaii. Long flight, 6 hours.
6 hours, right?
Yeah, all buy on board. There's no free provisions of anything, and these people would get on expecting free meal, and you can see in their minds they're thinking back to the good old days.
And it's like, all
And
right, it's a long flight. I should be getting some food, right?
yeah, and they're not provisioned properly because their expectations are vastly different than the reality. So, and then again, that goes back to these people that are put on planes to be flown around the world. Are they given snacks?
True.
Doubt it. Doubt it. And again, long haul though, they get the default meal, so fine.
Yeah.
Um,
But then it's like, if you're flying someone around the world, it's like, all right, it's like, are there things that the person needs to eat? I mean, vegetarian or, low sodium
sodium
or
and all
that
that
kind of
stuff.
thing, right? Like,
Yeah,
if you're booking an overseas flight for somebody, making sure that they're going to eat correctly.
exactly. And you think about the meals that get served, like the trays are just getting smaller and more compact and lighter. And you get like that packet with all the cutlery and the napkin and
Hmm.
your salt and pepper. You tear it apart. There's just nowhere on these trays anymore to like put the stuff half the time.
Yeah.
And again, because the planes are so packed, especially in economy, you drop a fork or a knife or something. How do you pick it back up? You don't,
Yeah.
right? So for someone that has some mobility issues or just it can be pretty rough, right? So to be able to have your meal and the crew is running around trying to service the entire plane. So if they're able to stop them and get the assistance, that's great. But again, unfortunately, this group gets lost in the shuffle, literally, a lot of
Hmm.
the time. So hopefully airlines, are going to do their part to improve the service. But honestly, the way the airports are being designed and provisioning is being done, it's a bit of a mystery as to where this is going to go and where we
Hmm.
will end up ourselves.
What we have to look forward to.
Yeah. I just know that when I retire one day, my post retirement job is going to be to work for an airline and do the meet and greet and point because then I get to work in an airport again and I will maybe get some flight benefits.
And you'll be able to fly up in the pointy end of the plane.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So there we go. That's one we've been trying to do for a while. So hopefully, people can relate. And if anyone, hopefully we haven't offended anyone. That's not our intent. It's just a delicate one to wrap some words around sometimes on a lot of this, but hopefully, our listeners understand where we're going with all of that.
Absolutely. And yeah, definitely things to think about and things to think about personally as as the time goes by and the sands of time move through the hourglass. So
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay. What do we have going on in the news this week?
well, I know you've always had lots of favorable comments about Air India
Oh,
recently,
yes. Oh, yes.
but I found something here from livemint.com, which is an Indian business website. Singapore Airlines gets a 25.1% stake in Air India after injecting $267 million. And this is from February the 28th. And so they will take a 25.1% stake following its takeover and merger with Vistara Airlines. So Singapore will reinforce its partnership with Tata and immediately acquire a strategic stake in an entity that is 4 to 5 times larger in scale compared to Vistara. So this will be very interesting to see because it will now mean that they have 218 aircraft once the brands are combined. So I think this provides a very interesting approach. I mean, it would be another maybe a competition point where people can be using, say, India instead of the Mid East for certain transit points as well.
Yeah. I mean, India's only like 4 hours from Southeast Asia,
Yeah,
5 hours. It's not terribly far. Interesting because there was that explosion of the number of airlines in India
yeah,
a while back. They were like low cost. There was those trying to be a little bit fancier, like Jet Airways and stuff. And then a bunch of them got wiped. Air India, obviously, government owned, it's been there the whole time. So interesting to see how it's kind of turning around a little bit
hmm
to sort of bring it back to common line point.
yeah, and now with Singapore being involved. I mean, obviously interconnecting their schedules and their situations, but hopefully Air India raises its quality level
Mm-hmm.
to match up as well.
I hope so. That's all I can say. I really hope so. Because
No
man,
more cardboard pictures where the screen was supposed to be on the back of the seat, right?
yeah, and grubby planes. I mean, they're getting new planes, and
Yeah.
they've ordered a bunch more wide bodies and whatnot through Boeing. So yeah, sometimes when you have the insurgence of a different airline, on the management administrative level, it can make some changes downline. So let's see.
We'll
See
see
where
how it
that
goes over
goes.
the next few years.
Yeah. I have one with a great headline from Simple Flying. United Airlines enlists Oscar the Grouch for sustainability promotion campaign. So those of us that were raised with Sesame Street will remember Oscar the Grouch as one of the characters. So they've actually brought him into the brand marketing to discuss sustainable aircraft fuel and all things related to that. So it's kind of fun. I mean, they have a commercial and they've labeled him as the Chief Trash Officer, which is great. So it's fun. If anyone's grown up, with Sesame Street in their lives and remembers the original Oscar the Grouch, this is kind of like a fun tie-in for that. Because United is really going hard on sustainability, whether it be SAF, hydrogen-powered aircraft, et cetera, et cetera. So it'd be cool to see where they take all things sustainability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I see the picture saying, there was the famous song that he would sing saying, I love trash. And now I see in the picture it's saying, I love SAF.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they've done a cute little throw on that. And one last quick little story here. It's also from Simple Flying just because it popped up in the next story. Japan Airlines serves a banana as a vegan meal. And literally what they did is someone ordered a vegan meal. And there's a picture of it that I'm looking at here. The tray setup comes with the cutlery packet and a drink and a banana on a plate. And that was his vegan meal. And the crew said, this is what was provided. And that's the end of it. Like, quite shocking. And I can just see this all going down, Japan Airlines, the Japanese culture. They'd be so polite and so apologetic. But I'd be pretty infuriated if someone just gave me a banana and said, here you go. It's just, wow. I don't know what happened there.
But it's not the first time that airlines have had issues making vegan meals. Apparently, some Air Canada passenger asked for a vegan meal and she got served a single bottle of water. And then she was eventually served a makeshift meal made from leftover business class trays consisting of fruit and bread rolls. And then in 2020, a British Airways passenger requested a vegan option and was served a meal containing butter and cheese, of course, both of which are animal-based.
Oh, man. I think we talked about it. Like, if you don't order a meal and then the crew has to scramble.
Yeah. But I mean, if it was pre-ordered and preset,
then
shame
that's
on
bad.
the caterer.
Yeah, that's really bad. Oh, boy. All right. So.
Just taking a look at the Japan Airlines comment there. The current snack and refreshment for all special meals on this route is a banana. We take customer satisfaction seriously and will continue to respond to our menus in light of the growing interest and diverse needs of our customers requesting special meals.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Like what? Like, is the banana made of gold? I don't know.
Artisanal grown banana. It was flights departing from Jakarta, so maybe they have their own banana grove in Indonesia somewhere.
Maybe it's the best banana you'll ever eat in your life. I don't know.
It's like Kopi Luwak except with bananas.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right,
awesome. Well, that wraps up the Silver Wings experience of the Seat 180 podcast. If you liked this podcast experience, be sure to rate us and subscribe. Tell your friends and fellow travelers about us. Make sure you visit us at podcast.seat1a.org for complete show notes. That's Sierra Echo Alpha Tango, the number 1, alpha.org. feedback, addenda, letting us know where we've messed up, you can send all of that to stories, STORIES, at seat1a.org. If you'd like to support the show financially, we have a page at Patreon, patreon.com/seat1a. Links are included in the show notes.
And here's what you can look forward to in upcoming Seat 1A podcast experiences. We're going to come back to hotels and look at airport hotel experiences specifically. And we're working on getting a few more interviews lined up. And we'll eventually get to ticketing and doing a refresh on that subject. As always, we look forward to your stories and experiences. If there's anything you want us to discuss, or if you have a crazy travel story you'd like to share with us, please let us know.
Excellent. So until the next time, I'm Geoff. Thanks for listening.
And I'm Vinod. You're cleared for takeoff. Have a great flight.